Hi guys, so let's talk about fashion trends. Do you need to know fashion trends to look great? When different bloggers present you different fashion trends, they're normally showing you pictures like that. And even if it looks aesthetically pleasing for you, you have to take into account how this trend has been presented. Because the body that is wearing it, the lighting, and the background matter. You basically can sell anything in this world if you present it in a certain way. So marketing is an art of presentation. You can even sell a dirty sock if you would want to. So every single clothes piece that you see online, on different advertisements, on TV, it's not just this one clothes piece that you're looking at. You're looking at everything. You're looking at the person inside of this piece. You're looking at the background and the lighting. Different brands spend huge amount of money to present this or that piece, and they're trying to present it in a certain way. Sometimes it's an artistic representation, and they don't go for necessarily aesthetically pleasing thing. They go for something shocking, something strange, something that would grab your attention. Sometimes that is much more paying than the beauty itself. There's a lot of beauty around us in the world, a lot of symmetry, many classic things. Classic things and symmetry normally calms you down. Sometimes when you need to grab someone's attention, you gotta do something that is different. And it's not always a beautiful thing, a beautiful, classic, and calm thing. Sometimes it can be ugly thing, something opposite to beautiful, just to grab your attention. And they know it and they do it all the time. And I can see so many women who are not aware about this. They don't look at item. They look at the representation of an item. Take it all as a package. So that top that you see, it's not the top that you're looking at. You're looking at the woman is wearing it, at her skin, at her makeup, at her eyes, at her lips, at her hair, at her pose, and the background, and the lighting. This is why in most of the online shops the background is white, because it gives you a very clean and minimalistic feel. When you're wearing this thing, it's not minimalistic anymore. You're wearing this every day in your environment. You're always surrounded with stuff, and you have your own body that also is creating an additional thing. And nobody ever perceives you with just one top or one pants. So people who are trained in arts, who feel arts, they normally think within the combination of things. Normally when people are not aware about this, they are shopping or looking at just one thing. They think within whether this particular thing is beautiful by itself. Many kids also are buying like that beautiful pink purse with a lot of sparkles. That's just so pretty. I want it. So they have it and they look at it and they just love it so much. It's a separate beautiful piece. They're not thinking within the combination, how it's gonna look with my pants. And there's another people who buy things because it was represented beautifully. And there's another category of people who don't even look, but they just trust. For example, if that's a famous brand, for them that's enough to trust. One of the reasons why I did this channel is so we would stop thinking too much and start looking and feel our perceptions. But at the same time, when you know the information about the past, when you know the history, when you've seen loads of different elements of the look, you can then combine them in your mind, and you will be able even to imagine the look in your mind. So professionals in their field, they can build the whole thing in their mind already. In my viewpoint, you don't have to know anything about trends to be absolutely stunning, to look very fashionable, very stylish, to look very appropriate and very statusy, and even look very expensive. So in my viewpoint, let's say you never know about the trends, you still can dress up beautifully. And all you need for that is just to know the number of basic things that are actually quite classic, and basics are opposite to trends. Trends is a short period of time thing that is popular for just now, as opposed to basics, which are classics that will last you for a long time. Many people say that's very boring, everybody's wearing same thing, but that's a great base to start from. You can't start from anywhere else. There are people who already know how to make their look interesting. They have this style sense, maybe from their mom, from their grandmother, or just from childhood. They just have this talent. But there are many people who don't have it, but it's still possible to learn it and have a vision. So after you have these basics, then you can add some interesting things. For example, I know one Italian lady, she's 75 years old. She's mostly wearing basics, but there's one thing that she's always adding to her look, and this is bandana. slightly in the 50s style, 50s pin-up girl worker kind of a style. Most of the time she's wearing red bandana, but sometimes she goes for black, and sometimes with pattern like leopard or polka dot or zebra, different kinds of patterns. It just suits to her head shape, to her hair. She doesn't have to take care of styling her hair too much because this bandana is saving her situation. Every time she looks very stylish, even though everything else is very basic. And this one element, it's not trendy piece, it's vintage piece. Vintage, it's something that was timeless in the past. And now we can incorporate different kinds of vintage pieces into our look, and that can create your personal signature style. You will have this wardrobe for many years. It's gonna work for you if you found those little pieces that work just for you and elevate your style, elevate your basics. On the next level, you can look stunning and amazing and very trendy, actually very much appropriate, very modern, knowing zero information about trends. Never checking out the podium, never watching any videos about trends of this season. I know there are tons of channels that talk about it. I like sometimes talk about it just for wider perspective, but I know I'm gonna use just that much of information from there. And the rest, it was just for fun. I don't even remember that. How can you predict the longevity of a trend? The more weird the thing is in shape, in color, in form, in fabric, and the less practical it is, this is the shortest trend. The more practical it is, the closer it is to basics, the more it makes sense to spend your money on, because sometimes there's certain things on trend they kind of were on trend for many decades because they're very close to basics. They're more or less symmetrical. Everything is normal, nothing all over the top. It kind of fits to majority of ages and majority of body types. So those things will last you for a long time. So this is how you can filter these things. For example, these kind of sneakers, that is quite exaggerated piece and it's not going to be trendy for a long time. Pieces like that, it's quite short trend. But the sneakers that look normal, this piece you're going to wear for a long time. Also, when we talk about trends, it's not for every body type. For example, in the past several decades, this kind of a body type is used to represent all these trends because basically things are hanging on these ladies. Because it's much harder to make something fit to a curvy woman because it has to sit on her properly. It has to go around the curves. And not everybody wants to go for that. This is another reason why oversized pieces were so popular recently. Because if a curvy woman wants to buy something that sits properly on her body, it's much harder to do through online shops. She would have to go somewhere and actually try this on and understand how good it fits. So every time you're buying something oversized, it's much easier to sell. And each trendy piece is gonna look completely different on different body types. Kendall Jenner, quite flat and elongated and quite straight. Maybe she would look a little bit weird in something Marilyn Monroe would wear, but she can go for low-waisted jeans with crop tops, and she kind of looks effortless and normal in that. But imagine Marilyn Monroe would wear that. And Marilyn Monroe is not less gorgeous woman than Kendall Jenner. She would not look presentable in that kind of a clothes. She needs something different, something that would accommodate her curves. So you see, many things depend on the body type, but don't let this discourage you and feel like you're less beautiful than the models on a runway. I also don't agree that everything looks good on models. It's just they are slightly faceless and they're like the hangers themselves. So every single clothes is not gonna stretch in wrong places on them. Any of these women should be able to wear it to represent that thing, but it doesn't mean that this woman is necessarily even the best body type for that particular thing. Maybe a small and curvy and quite wide woman would look much better on this particular piece than this tall model. I have a huge playlist about key body types, which we talk about taller women and smaller women with more flesh, with less flesh, with more squarish or more rounded, and many combinations like that. And each woman has a vibe, and each woman has her own character. This is why my channel is all about finding your signature style, but still be modern, appropriate, classic, classy, delicate, sometimes elegant, sometimes funky, whatever you want. Because I know not only every woman has a different body, they all have different areas of her life, different periods of your life. Sometimes you want to be more funky. Sometimes you want to be more elegant. Sometimes you want to be delicate. Sometimes you don't want to be delicate, and it's fine. But I know that each woman is a character. She's playing a certain role in that movie that is called her life. Now, another thing about trends. If you're buying one trendy piece, it's also very important what you combine it with. Because when in the shops, they want to sell you a certain thing, they make a certain composition, stylization of this thing that makes this thing look very cool. And sometimes you're not even aware about this, but you are not buying a thing. You're buying the whole look. You're buying the whole picture, including the background. That is what you're buying. You have to be aware about that you're buying the background too. Unless you know for sure what looks good on you. Then you have this imagination. Also, if let's say one thing is trendy, doesn't mean that every single thing that is similar to this thing would be trendy too. For example, nowadays this type of blazers are trendy, but if we look at that blazer, by description, it's kind of same. Yeah, it has some waist emphasis there. It's also sharp in outline, but it's just small, tiny, looks short, looks very 2010s. Just not looking good. This one looks very stylish because it's made, the fabric, the outline, the silhouette, the size, everything is made in terms of modern trend. So sometimes you might think you're going for a trend, but you're not. Trends are normally expensive, but it's not worth it. You're spending a lot of money, but then you can't wear this thing that often because that are very memorable. So if you're wearing that same top second day in a row, everybody was going to remember that top. If you're wearing that type of a top second day in a row, everybody will remember you. Your face, your eyes, maybe your hair, but not the top. Trendy thing might be trendy for a very short time. I would rather spend more money on the basic piece. Also, trends are harder to understand. Every single area of our life has a gradation. There are just people who don't care about what they're wearing. They just going through life. There are people who are very interested in what they're wearing, but their profession is connected to something else. They just like to look good for themselves. And they're professionals. There are people who are working in fashion. They perceive things differently. And for them, something trendy, something very weird and interesting would be super cool looking. They sometimes would have a true change of hormonal balance in their body just by looking at something like this. They physically have that pleasure looking at something weird. And for us, for whom the clothes is just not that much about doing something interesting or something above, but just feel good, feel comfortable, feel classy, statusy. For us, it would be weird. We would not find any aesthetic in this because these are different parameters that we think through. So this is why I would be careful to get advices from people who are too much into fashion because it's normally not very practical. They're gonna tell you to wear something like that. And not many women would look chic in that type of an outfit who might pull that off. You should have a certain angularity. You have to have a certain vertical line, elongation in your body. You have to have sometimes even like certain facial features. Women with a lot of softness, for example, they would just look very weird in that. Be very careful about who you are listening to. Sometimes it makes sense not to listen to a stylist and someone who works in high fashion. And it makes sense to listen to somebody who's more down to earth. And it's funny because sometimes I see that situation when women were waiting for a certain trend for years. Probably started from the 60s, prominent butt or wide hips were just not on trend for several decades. And then we had J-Lo, who were not ashamed to show that part, then with Kim Kardashian, and then women who had no butt, they started injecting the butt. It's another insane thing in my viewpoint. But I think it's a great thing when we have different kinds of bodies appreciated. Or me, for example, I've been waiting for certain trends for a long time because I'm slightly angular, slightly squarish, I'm small, and I'm a little bit straight. My legs are not super long. In 2000s, I just couldn't find myself. And those low-waist jeans were making my legs so short and all those strange tops. It was so much not me. So I've been waiting for my trend for a long time until in 2010s, we had this hipsters era. When we got back to vintage clothes, when we got back to high-waisted, cropped slim jeans. Instead of weird ruffly top with stones or words, we started having that vintage tomboyish crispy shirt with more vintagey colors. That saved my situation. This is when I started being interested in fashion. I started shopping. And even though this trend is way in the past now and we're going for more large pieces, I've been waiting for that trend for too long time. And for me, that is a timeless trend and I'm still having this and I look good in it. And it doesn't matter for me if everybody goes for oversized. I love that cropped, small, vintagey, tomboyish things. And they work for me and nobody thinks, oh, she looks old-fashioned, because I've been waiting for my trend. And so as curvier women might wait for their trend sometimes, and when it's on trend, they might get a lot of that stuff in the shop and then they will wear it for so many years in a row. Even when these things are out of trend, it fits to their personal body. So on them, that will look like it's not a trendy piece, but just something very harmonious. Let me know in the comments, guys, if you're one of those who's always checking the trends and tries to get something trendy in your wardrobe, or you never follow with this, or you follow but just for entertainment purposes. Thank you so much and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.